All right. Hello, world historians. I am here again with DBQ 5 and going to step you through me grading 2 peer grades myself. So if you're not sure what to write or what to say, this video will help you out. All right. So what you're doing is pretty much just giving feedback to the 9 different sections, and then at the end give them an overall score of 0 through 9. So the first thing you should see is the contextualization. And we got here, during the mid to late 1400s, the Europeans wanted to expand their empires. During these times, they created new maritime technologies and explored the west of Europe and found the Americas. The Spanish then created colonies and started ruling over these indigenous people for the benefit of their own country. The arrival of the Spanish rule in South America. All right, so that's going into their thesis, even though there's no period there, that's fine. So there's no contextualization, unfortunately. So I'm gonna put a thumbs down. Oh. And we need some feedback here. Good stepping back. On Europe and expanding empire, but need to describe why matters to Spanish. Oops. So in other words, here, they were on the right track, but they just needed to give us a little bit more, and then they would have got the point. All right, so the thesis here. Oops, that's from the other class. So the arrival of the Spanish rule in South America during 1550 to 1800 affected the indigenous population because they converted them to Christianity and forced them into labor, therefore changing the indigenous population's culture. All right. So the only thing that's weak here, no, that's good. Yep, we're gonna give this a yes. All right, so now going into the documents is what we do next, because I know that's the easier thing to find. Now, remember, 1 point is did your classmates use at least 2 documents to describe the content from those 2 documents that correspond to the topic of the prompt. Remember, they don't have to argue. They don't have to explain how that fits with the argument. They just need to practically identify some key things in 2 documents that are related to the prompt. That's all you gotta do. So when the Spanish found the Americas, they created colonies and sent over missionaries to convert the indigenous people to Christianity. In document 1, the author is a Dominican priest saying that the Spanish people took his people and were selling them for their own good. This shows that the Spanish had brought Christianity to the Americas and converted the native people. This document is important to the argument because the point of view is a native from the Americas talking about Jesus Christ and Christianity. The next paragraph, with the colonies that the Spanish created, they also created labor camps that the indigenous people were forced into by the Spanish. In document 5, the people leaving for the camps are not excited and are deeply saddened because they are being forced and are going to be paid very little. the purpose of this document is to show the Spaniards what they're doing is wrong. All right, so in document 5, it is about the people not excited and saddened to be leaving. So they use 1. Document 1. In this instance, we have some misinterpretation because the Dominican priest is not a native. However, the Spanish people took his people and were selling them for their own good. This is mentioned, and that gives them the point for the documents. So document 1, indigenous being sold for own good. And doc 5, Indians. I can't spell indigenous for the life of me today, which is going to be interesting since that's what these are about. All right, indigenous, deeply saddened. All right. So those are both how they're being affected, and you got it. All right, now did they use them to support the argument? Because they didn't do 4, so this is going to be an automatic thumbs down. Only talked about 2 ducks. And no attempt at evidence beyond document. Stick to my emojis. Oops, did not mean to be 2. All right, and sourcing we'll talk about. Wait, what's this one? Oh, so let me just copy this and put it with the second one, because remember, you get 2 evidence beyond the document points. And then sourcing. Sourcing was attempted, so we'll talk about that in a second. All right, so when the Spanish found the Americas, they created colonies and sent over missionaries to convert the indigenous people to Christianity. So unfortunately, this doesn't go correctly with an argument. So they're not going to be able to get this point, even though I think they do it on the other one, because you have to do it with 2. So thumbs down. Document 1 has misinterpreted. Yeah. But good job with Doc 5 arguing. Arguing. All right. Now we're down to the happy and sourcing. All right. So thumbs down. POV doc 1, not native. However, if you're going to use point of view, you must describe his POV, his opinion, where he comes from. That helps us understand more about the source. Just mentioning that the point of view is a native, even if it was true, would not be good enough. If you watched my video, you know, I really talk about him being a priest and his role as a priest and how that contributes to document 1. Now in document 5, the purpose of this document is to show the Spaniards what they're doing is wrong. So, and thumbs down here. Doc 5, purpose is described in content, not source. And pretty much if you do purpose, you have to look at the document itself. And what is the purpose of that document? I think the student, if they wrote a little bit more than just saying the purpose of this document is to show the Spaniards what they're doing is wrong. You know, newspapers essentially are supposed to uncover, you know, some hidden truths out there in the world for the general public to know. And that's the key thing that you'd want to focus on with the purpose. You know, purpose of a newspaper is just as that. And this is one of the first newspapers down there, which just makes it even more interesting that they're, you know, writing about such controversy kind of situation. You know, really capturing the sadness of these people going into those labor camps. Or, I mean, in a way, they're like labor camps. I wouldn't necessarily compare them to Hitler or whatever the case may be, but all right. That's what I think of when I hear labor camps too. So looking back through here, I made sure I commented and we got 2 points. They got the thesis point and then they got using 2 of the documents. As you see, if you were to do this in a timed environment, a 3 is a good starting point. So keep trying, just write a bit more and shoot for all 5 docs to talk about. Because I feel that this student, if they would have talked more in the contextualization, they would have got a point there. If they would have talked more about the purpose of this document, they probably would have got a sourcing point. And then if they talked and argued more with the other 3 documents, they could have got another point or maybe 2 more points. Because if they used 4 of them properly, because we got 1 already down, unfortunately. So they would need to have the other 3 all done correctly because you've got 5 that's doing good. Keep trying, just write a bit more and shoot for all 5 docs to talk about. Good luck. All right. So there's that one. Let's go on to a second one. All right, so looking at this here, they are starting with the thesis. Although the Spanish colonial rule affected indigenous populations greatly in South America circa 1550 to 1800 because the Spanish wanted to extract gold and silver from the Americas by enslaving the indigenous people, to stimulate the Spanish economy and make Spain a more powerful country, and by aiming to convert Native Americans to Christianity. So this is the thesis. So they got the thesis point. But on a side note, there's this stuff here, you know, because the Spanish wanted to do this, I guess you are showing the causation. You know, this happened to cause this. This happened to cause that. However, I just feel like it could be worded differently. It made it better because it almost is like, wait, no, you're focusing on the Spanish. And then it's just, this is the argument that we're looking for, enslaving indigenous people. And then same thing with here, aiming to convert to Christianity. But good job, they got the thesis. Now, if we read on, but the actions during the Spanish colonial rule didn't completely strip the indigenous from their practices of their religions or cultures. I don't know if that is their counterclaim. And the ending of the Spanish colonial rule left the indigenous people were converted and enslavement. So I don't see any contextualization. A big thesis in first paragraph. All right, so let's look at the document use now. So the Spanish want to extract things such as gold, silver, sugar, and other raw materials. To obtain these things, they enslaved the indigenous people from surrounding areas to extract these valuable materials. And now, on a side note, sugar is not in the Americas. The Spanish and English and everybody else brought over the sugar because the soil was so good and planted it there and made plantations of sugar plantations. That was not taken from the Americas. Just wanted to reiterate that particular piece. But if you ignore that, the wrong information, you still have, yes, they wanted gold and silver, and they saw lots of gold in the temples, and they found the silver mines. So they're like, oh, we have some. So they did want to extract these, and they did enslave the indigenous people. So we do have an argument here. We do have an assertion. Let's see how the documents match up with this. All right, so we got document 1. And you laid out who wrote everything. Bartholomew explains how the Spaniards, to see how Bartholomew explained how the Indian people were treated, shows the effect. The sense of families are split up. So they use Doc 1. Doc 1 for mass deaths and slavery. And sold as slaves. It even explains and argues it. So we have that Doc 1. Pulling the student's work right there is there going to the argument. Let's see, Doc 5 is in a newspaper written by, and by the way, this is not our author's name, it's the name of the newspaper. When you look at the source with it being in italics, it shows you the name of the newspaper, just so you guys know. So talks about the Indian sadness And so it talks about this. Just shows the Spaniards must have had an industrial force over the Indies people and controlling them and making them their slaves to work in the resources. All right, so here is your argument. So we can do a thumbs up for both of these now. Oh, excuse me, sorry. Oops. Thumbs up. I got the point. Thumbs up. They got the point. So this is the only time that you can kind of double dip, because you could use the same documents to get the same 2 points. So essentially, if you just did 2 documents like the previous one we saw, if they would have explained more into the argument, then they could have got 1 more point, even though they only used 2 documents. But these guys, this student, went on, and we got, oops, went too far. We got 2 more documents in this paragraph here. With the same argument about being enslaved, supposedly. All right, so let's read on. Although the Spaniards succeeded in enslaving, they used to break the bond between. Okay, so one of his main goals during the Spanish was to convert the indigenous to Christianity. By doing so, for example, in Doc 3, a request from the Christian Peruvian nobleman, and they quoted, the ministry should also from an expression. This could explain how they wanted to spread Christianity to only certain types of people, concluding in the exception of some. This would lead to a creation of a caste system, which has been known for centuries. The caste system was a social system in which class status is determined by birth. The Spanish had mixed race children in the Americas with enslaved Africans and Native Americans. Status was determined by how Spanish one was. So those with little to no Spanish blood were in the lower class. All right, good job at talking about the caste system. Be real careful, because they are called castas. And I know that's the Spanish word for it as a caste. But it's not necessarily determined by birth. The Spanish created this system. As we see that they explained it properly here, how it's created. It's by the color of your skin, essentially. It is about how Spanish you are, or more so how white you are. The goal was to be as white as possible. And that's how it's been in Latin America. So do they use this towards the argument? Or towards an argument? They could change the argument, which looks like they tried to do here. So I'm at, with the quote, they don't necessarily explain what's in that quote, not just merely quoting. They do, I like how they say this could explain how they wanted to spread Christianity, and that makes a caste system. So with all this explanation here about the caste system, I would say that this is sourcing. That's sourcing historical situation. So I'm going to move down to, wouldn't be evidence beyond, since, the caste system is mentioned in these documents. But they go into a little bit more detail that's not in the documents. So let's go here. So Doc 3, historical. Oops, gosh, I can't spell anything today. Situation. Explain caste system in Latin America. Or South America would be the better. That's our prompt. All right, so, oops, didn't say Doc 3. So I'm gonna give a thumbs up. So they got 1 sourcing. But I'm at the part if they really argued document 3. I'll just put a question mark here. And this is where I'm going to say no, that they did. But, you know, if you wrote this, you know, you could, even with me being your teacher, you can argue back at me here, possibly. My quotes throw me off, though. That's why we don't want to quote, because you're not, you know, in the directions that you don't want to merely quote them. You want to explain, which you do, but do you explain enough? That is my question. We're really into the big cast piece of it all. And we're looking at, you know, the big argument that was up at the top is enslaving. So it has nothing to do with enslaving the indigenous people. Then we start to talk about, you know, that Colonial wanted to convert the indigenous to Christianity, and that doesn't talk anything about converting to Christianity. So I'm really not, I don't see an argument explained. That's kind of my feedback on that. All right, so in Doc 2, a letter is sent to a Spanish king, sent by Jose, Jesuit priest. He explains how the different groups of people based on color and culture would be blended to create stronger communities. Another example of the caste system found throughout these documents was document 4. Now let me go back to the documents here. Yeah, I'm going to take this explanation here. So use document 2. But there's not explained to an argument, no about conversion to Christianity, and nothing about being enslaved. And then talk about another example of the caste system found. Should wear, based on a nobility meaning social stance, the caste system was a big contribution to the spirit effect on the indigenous people during this time. And then again, this doesn't explain what we got. So they use these other documents. So put a thumbs down. These documents are not explained to an argument about how indigenous all right, now we got one more paragraph here. Being that one of these influences to conquer and take power over the indigenous peoples in the South American regions was to gain more power, since the Spanish did not have much power before the enslavement of the Indians. An effect related to the Indies people rather than colonization is the Columbia Exchange, which started in 1492 during the beginning of the Spanish colonization. This involved an exchange of plants, goods, ideas, and disease from Europe to the Americas. This exchange benefited Europeans more than Native Americans because Europeans spread smallpox, deadly disease, to North American people. So, what do you guys think that is? Context doesn't have to be in the first. In the last paragraph. And that works. I'll take the Columbia Exchange and the smallpox there, because that's why they need and affect them. All right, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't see any attempt for any evidence beyond. There was some mentions, but that's all within the contextualization. No attempt. If that last paragraph, was there attempt to do evidence beyond? It doesn't argue towards the effects of the indigenous people, and that's what the evidence would have to do. So this one almost could work, but it sets up the context much better. It doesn't explain to the argument. So unfortunately, that one won't work. Now, I'm going to put a thumbs down here. But the one thing that they are trying to do, I hope that they don't think this is sourcing. I see you mention the source line on many documents. But you need to describe more. You know, a historian, of course, can pull, you know, who wrote the information, but what about that person that wrote it? You know, who did their intended audience? What's happening in the situation in history at this point in time? You know, what's the purpose of that document? Like we mentioned with, you know, the paper last, with the last essay we looked at, you know, not just mentioning, hey, this is written by Bartholomew de las Casas, and he is a Dominican priest. You know, tell us more. How does that affect what he's saying in that paper? Those types of things. That is sourcing. So let me just finish my thought here. I see you mentioned the source line in many documents, but you need to describe more. There, as simple as that. So let's go back. I think there's 5 points, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is, I'm very happy with this. I know it's like, that's a little bit over 50%. But again, I am happy for a 5 in this instance. So submit that, and I'm done with my 2 peer grades. So good job. You've successfully given the feedback to all your assigned peers. And that's what we got to do by Wednesday at 11:30 in the evening. I noticed that the timing is wrong on Peergrade, so I will fix that. You know, I'm sticking to my calendar, which, speaking of calendars, I updated it because I'm sure you noticed that there's something different. All right, so I pulled up the calendar here. I'm going to post this on Edsby. And moving down here, today's the 11th. Notice there was no Zoom meeting. I didn't change any of that. So, oops, speaking of, I changed that idea. Doop. Sorry. All right. So peer grades due 11:30 on Wednesday. You can't do this week's DBQ FRQ until peer grades are done and you can see your feedback. Because what I'm having you do is rewrite the DBQ 5 that I just graded and went through the 5 documents in another video that I'll link at the end here to have you go and look at the documents and, you know, good thesis statements and good contextualization ideas, good evidence beyond the document ideas, looking at those things and the sourcing that you could use. But also, you can, even if you did really bad on your, if you did really good, if you only missed 1 or 2 points, no, 1 point is what I was doing. I want you, you're automatically, I don't want you correcting that one mistake you made on your essay. That's fine. I want you to go and do a 6th DBQ. And I have a new prompt that I will post on Edsby on Wednesday. after the Zoom meeting. Might actually show it at the end of the Zoom meeting. I haven't quite decided. I don't know how much time I'm going to take talking about cheat sheets and things like that and organizing your notes for the Zoom meeting. However, you can't start the DBQ until the 14th because I won't post the new DBQ until the 13th, and then your results from the peers won't be available until Thursday so that you can make corrections, essentially. So that's what you have a choice. Now, if you got, you know, an 8 out of 9 or a 9 out of 9, then you have no choice. You're going to do DBQ 6, which is a new set of 5 documents. I only want you to use and do it in 45 minutes. That's it. Do not take any extra time. Now set your timer and do it in 45 minutes. And then you're going to submit the essay on Edsby. Now, if you did, like, if you were one of these guys that I just graded, and you know you got a 5 out of 9 or 3 out of 9, I think the other one was, right, or 2 out of 9, you can go in there and try to source and do all those things to get more points. Or what you can do is also just go, okay, that was DBQ 5, I really didn't like the prompt, because sometimes that happens, and then just do DBQ 6. Either way, you have a choice if you missed more than 1 point. But we can't do that again until the 14th and figure out and make our decision and know what we're going to do. So your DBQ is not due at 9 a.m. on Friday this week, okay? It is due to Edsby here. I'm going to bold this, which I know some of you take the psych exam, but the DBQ will be due at 9 a.m. And I know a lot of y'all are doing the APES as well. So you know, I give these extended due dates. You know, technically on Thursday, you could go and write your DBQ because you're only going to take 45 minutes if you do the new DBQ. And then if you're rewriting, you're just going to go into the places that you got the thumbs down or the nose that you didn't get the points and add those. You know, shoot for a 7 out of 9. 7, 8, 9. That's what I want you to get, is a 7, 8, 9. So depending on, you know, if you're at a 7, of course, you could shoot for the 8, 9, or you can just do the other DBQ. So that's the big thing. You have a choice, DBQ 6 or rewrite DBQ 5 and get a 7, 8, or 9. You guys know what to do now because you got examples. You've seen the peers that you graded, 2 of them. They have some good examples in there, even if they're not perfect, like my 5 and my 2. They had some good stuff there and easy ways to fix those to get more points. So that's what you can either do with yours, or just go and look at DBQ 6 that will be posted on Wednesday. And we're still, don't forget about the MCQ about Unit 6, because that was what we're reviewing back over this week, you know, going through Heimler's videos, beefing up your notes, getting them organized. And that's due at 9 a.m. On Friday. So those are your due dates. Remember, if you are one of these red tests that are in here, just because you have the psych exam at 2 doesn't mean you can't turn in your DBQ at 9, because that's in the morning anyways. I'd want to sleep in anytime I have any of these AP exams. So, you know, you could turn it in Friday night or Monday night. That's fine. You could turn it on Saturday. You could turn it on Sunday, whatever. It's up to you guys. The latest that I'm accepting those is at 9 a.m. Then you're going to get that little yellow tick mark because you're going to turn it in on Edsby. So put it in a Word document or put it into PDF and submit it. Or if you handwrite it, you can handwrite this one. You can take a picture of it and submit it to Edsby as well. So those are your 3 options: Word doc, PDF, or submit it to, take a picture of it. As your 3 things. All right, so we got the Zoom meeting this Wednesday. We're going to talk about cheat sheets. I got a Zoom meeting next Wednesday just to kind of what do you guys want from me? Or are we just going to relax and chill and, you know, get a little pep talk to you guys about the exam the next day? You let me know, okay? Good luck at peer grading and reviewing over Unit 6 this week. And I'll see you on Wednesday for the Zoom. Bye, guys.